Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Cheryl Fidelman, and welcome to Fridays with Fidelman. And today's topic is the Dead Parent Society. I thought that this was a really important topic to bring up because I noticed that in my experience as someone who's lost a father, my father died 16 years ago, and in my experience just talking with my clients, that losing a parent or parents or a guardian or guardians is an opportunity for transformation. It's an opportunity to transform your relationship with that parent or guardian, and it's also, in turn, an opportunity to transform your relationship with yourself. And in my work, the most important relationship is your relationship with yourself. Now, a few things. The reason why I feel like it's an opportunity to transform your relationship with that parent is that that person, your parent or guardian, is no longer in human form. They are now in an infinite amorphous form, a form that you can potentially make up. And for some of us, we make it up according to our spiritual or religious beliefs, or maybe just a feeling that we have when we feel the energy of that dead parent or guardian. And because they're no longer bound by the human form. They're no longer bound by their culture, their gender, their pathology, their history. They're no longer bound by the role that they play in your life, and you're no longer bound by the role that you play in their life. Because oftentimes in these relationships, the communication that we have with our parent or guardian is so locked in. It stays in a particular form, it stays in a particular frequency. They trigger certain responses in us. We hear them a particular way, potentially not even in a way that they're meaning to sound. And they're also stuck in their interpretations of us. And now that once they passed, we can talk to them any way we want to talk to them. And that's why I think that it's a transformation for us as well. All the things that we may have wanted from our parent or guardian that we didn't get, something that was missing. Maybe it was a sense of safety or protection or an apology or an honoring of you and your experience, a validating of you and your experience, guiding you, directing you, anything that might have been missing, particularly those things that were hard to ask for when they were alive, we can now ask for them. And whether or not our dead parent or guardian provides that thing for us, we now can hear ourselves saying the words. We can hear ourselves making those requests. We can say it out loud, whether it's by ourselves or with a friend or with a therapist or a coach. We can speak that which we may not have been able to speak at all in their presence or not when they were alive. And hearing ourselves make requests and giving ourselves permission to make requests, whether or not those requests are going to be satisfied, is a huge piece for a lot of us for our transformation and our evolution. Another layer of it, and I would like everybody to comment and provide your experiences about losing a parent. The other thing is the roles that we play in life. Excuse me, I'm sorry, my lighting keeps going down. The roles that we play in life. So who are we now that our parent or guardian has passed? Whose daughter are we? Whose son are we? Who are we sort of looking up to? And even if we didn't look up to our parents, maybe we wanted to and we didn't have the opportunity to. So this sort of identity struggle or this desire struggle, who are we? Who are we now an orphan? Are we now left to fend for ourselves? Do I have a parent? If they're dead, can I say I have a mom or I had a mom? These are all really, really interesting inquiries. And there's a level of forgiveness that I've noticed. Not with everybody, but there's a level of forgiveness once someone dies. That all of this anger that is wrapped up in their relationship when they're here, whether they're estranged from us or not, once they pass, it's like a little air gets let out on the balloon. that has been filling up intense. It's hard to be mad at a dead person. I've noticed that there's more vulnerability that comes out when a person dies, that anger sort of turns into compassion and empathy for ourselves, and potentially compassion and empathy for them. Not to say that anger doesn't have a place in death, because it certainly does, and it's valid. I've just noticed that anger softens. And this, in and of itself, is a beautiful transformation for us, because really what's underneath anger very often is a broken heart and a sad heart. And we can show and release that broken and sad heart more, I feel, when somebody has died. And there's something I found about death that helps release significance. So right now I have a little bit of a different background because I'm in New York visiting my family. And so my father died 16 years ago, and I'm here with my family, and there's kids running around, and there's different generations here, and there's a lot of fun and connection and a lot of healing happening. And while I'm with my family, there is this presence of loss every single second that my dad is not here. And he'll never get to meet his grandchildren. They'll never know who he is. And I myself and all of us have an entire lineage, an entire family tree of people that we will never know who they are. We'll never know what they went through. We will never know how they are impacting, how their lives are impacting our experience of life, our psychological disposition, and our trajectory. We come from mystery. We live our lives, and then we go back out in death into mystery. Depending on your religious and spiritual beliefs, some people are pretty clear about what happens when we die. But for a lot of us, we come from mystery, we live our lives, and we go back into mystery. And a lot of life is a mystery as well. And that might be another Fridays with Fidelman, the extent to which life is a mystery. And I want to bring up the life cycle because I think it's an important way to bring levity. It's an important way to bring levity to our significance, right? That I'm here with my family, there's children. I was a child once running around playing, and there was adults taking care of me, and they were adults sort of just figuring it out, stumbling through parenthood, and I was a pawn in their game. And then I grew up, and now there's children, and they're playing, and we're all just figuring it out, and they're sort of a pawn in our game. And then I'll go disappear into my death mystery, and then the kids will grow up. And it's this really generic cycle of life. It's generic. We are all in the same cycle. And I want to say that because I want to help bring some objective view on our traumas and what happens to us as a child. Because so much, almost all of what happens to us as a child steers our adult life. And a lot of it is imprinted in our soft wiring, which means we can work through it and heal and deprogram ourselves. But also if we look at how much of a generic cycle that we are in. And I think our significance, a lot of it comes from the fact that because we are human animals, we are able to reflect, and we're able to remember and reflect on those memories and make them mean things. And we are able to interpret current, past, and future realities, which may be a blessing and also a curse because it provides some level of significance, it provides pain, it provides a loss of connection, it molds our personality. So we are all generic beings going through a generic cycle. It's kind of like a flower, right? It roots itself, it grows from a seed, it blossoms, it dies. Plants the seeds grow, it blossoms, and it dies, right? So that's not necessarily a unique thought, but I think it's important to regurgitate that thought to remind us of the cycle that we're in. So I won't take up too much more time with this, and I want everybody to share about their relationship with a parent that has passed, how that relationship has changed once that parent has passed. And I'm going to read a little bit of a poem because my first one-woman show took place at my father's grave. And I talked about my father, and I talked about how when people die, how they all turn into a bunch of hads, woulds, and wases. He was this, she was that, he had this, she had that. She was great. She was, we're all just a bunch of hads, woods, and as soon as someone dies, man, he was a great guy. He had blonde hair, right? So I want to read a bit of a poem to you. And because I'm a poet and I'm a writer, and I like to, a lot of what I think and feel, I like to express through words. Okay, so this poem takes place in the stairwell of my father's hospice, because when my father was dying, I went into the stairwell and I just broke down. I completely broke down. So here we go. There in the stairwell of the hospice, it started to rain. Heavy winds and rain knocked me down 2 flights of stairs and forced me to scream and cry like a fresh and wet newborn baby, shocked by its new world. Sadness stormed through me, and it wasn't just my sadness. It was an inherited sadness of all of the darkness and unanswered questions of why, from all of my ancestry and all of the world at large, sprinted through me. They were a hall of mirrors type screams, a kaleidoscope and symphony of screams, and the cement walls absorbed my screams and screamed them back at me. It was in that stairwell where I had met my emptiness, that place inside me where I've absolutely nothing to do with my own existence, that same place inside my father where death found him. I feel like I'm lying when I say that he died, but I imagine he knows that he's dead. That is, if the deaders have knowing. It's weird saying that he died like he did something, like he did the doing of dying. But it wasn't him that did it, it was life. Life died him. And therefore those that have been died or deadened by life, I call the deaders. And now in the conversation of his survivors, he's become what most of the deaders have become, just a bunch of hads, woods, and wases. He was resilient. He had dusty brown hair and a ring around the sides and bald on top, and he was never a fan of the comb over. He would eat peanuts in his car, and he would say, I never met a meal I didn't like. He would say, good bread can make any sandwich great. He was kind, a pure gentleman. He was handsome. He had so much love in him. And he always would say, I love you, babe. He had a Ford Bronco that he never cleaned, because he would say that he didn't want to be seen as having money in the poor neighborhoods of the Rockaways where he worked. He would cook food from all over the world, because most of his patients were immigrants who would cook for him and teach him how they made their food. He was such a fan of food. And when he was dying, he would say, I used to live to eat. Now I eat to live. He was buried in the Bronx, and his life is now symbolized by the dash etched in his tombstone between the numbers 1938 and 2003. When I visit his tombstone, I make sure the dash is dirt-free, so his life can be clean until my next visit. But I've only visited the cemetery once. His tombstone is too ordinary. It has his name, years of living, a Jewish star, and 2 quotes. Beloved father, husband, and brother, to know him, was to love him. While all that is true, I don't like that the permanent phrases that represent my father's life were chosen from a tombstone catalog. And it's so real when I go there. Makes it so real that he's dead, and I don't like to get that real about it. Just want to read the last paragraph here. It's hard to believe that there's room here for all the other lives from all the other deaders here. I mean, we're surrounded by dead people's birthdays here, but looks like my dad took over this place. Or maybe everyone that visits here projects the life of their deader that only their eyes can see onto all the walls and stones, and shares the hads, woods, and wases of their deader who had been deadened by life while holding their ultimate truth. So thanks for listening to that. And I think it's a really good exercise. I've shared this exercise with some of my other clients where write your parent or guardian's hads, woods, and wases. There's something about the hads, woods, and wases that makes them more of a real person. And it provides special memories. Because everybody has their mannerisms, like the way they move their hands and the way they move their mouth and the way that they smell and the way they move their head and the way that they walk. And these are a lot of things that we remember and think about once somebody is dead. Like, oh, I remember the way he would put on his shoes or the way he would chew his food and the spit would sort of like, come up to his lip. I remember that about my dad. And these are also things that provide a lot of empathy and compassion and connection for the one that is dead. The other piece that I want to bring up, I might have already brought it up, I'm not quite sure, but our roles in life, okay? So when a parent dies, are we still someone's daughter? Are we still someone's son? And that role that we played in that relationship as that son or daughter, is there any other place in life where we can play that role? And is that role now for us done? And what does that mean? Does that mean that I will never meet that side of myself again that is someone's son or daughter? And what does that feel like? And this is where I want to bring in my attunement practice. What does it feel like in our body? What are our sensations when we think of losing a role in life? When we think of losing a person, or not even when we think about it, but we have the experience of losing a person, and how our feelings about them transform. And as those feelings about them transform, we now get to feel new feelings that we've never felt before. And in my attunement practice, we learn how to accompany those new feelings and sensations into our life so that we then can become a newer version of ourselves. Thank you so much for listening. Please comment, please join the Facebook page. And those of you who have lost a parent or guardian or who are predicting losing one soon, let's all share what our experiences are in that really important rite of passage in life. I think it's a really, really important rite of passage. I love you. Happy Friday, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody. Bye. Still here.